Happy New Year! Thank you for returning to the channel for 2024, or welcome if you're new. I thought it'd be a good way to kickstart things with kind of addressing a couple of goals that I think are good to have on the fashion side of things, and that is involving finding your personal style, but also building a wearable wardrobe in order to avoid that common phenomenon of having nothing to wear despite the fact that your closet is literally overflowing. That's the one I more so want to focus on today because I have spoken about personal style quite a bit in the past, and honestly, if you're building a wearable wardrobe, that's probably a more organic way to figure out what your personal style is anyway. Now, this probably is going to require a little bit of brain power just because unfortunately I can't give you one blanket list. Go and buy these items and all of your problems will be solved because, like I said, it's about being personal. So those classic lists we've all seen floating around for years that include things like a button up, a trench coat, jeans, black trousers, I'm sure do work for a lot of people, isn't going to be for everyone. You really need to be dictating your own version of these essentials, basics, go-tos, whatever you want to classify them as. I think a good way to define these, or at least how I like to, is if I can tick off these two key points. The first and most important for me is, do I feel comfortable in this? I don't just mean this in the literal sense of, is this comfortable to move around in, but how is it making you feel? Is it negatively or positively impacting your confidence? And does it feel like an accurate representation of you? Because for me, one of the biggest issues with the I have nothing to wear is if I put something on and I feel frumpy or like a fraud or just it doesn't feel right. That is definitely going to lead to the room looking like a crime scene. I am always encouraging people to be more experimental and expressive with their style, but there definitely is a fine line with that and being realistic, especially when it comes to the concept of these wearable wardrobes. You know, maybe you can introduce bits here and there and that can be the experimental part, but if you have your foundations down, even that's going to be easier. The other key point that I like to tick off is it versatile? And I feel like this is where people can go wrong sometimes, just because we've kind of been ingrained with the idea of versatile pieces are very plain and very simple. It doesn't necessarily have to be the case though. You just have to not be afraid to re-wear your items. And the beauty of this is actually that repetition is what creates personal style. If you're never re-wearing things, it's actually going to become a lot trickier to pinpoint what your signature is. So a good goal for everyone is to up the outfit repeating. Obviously, it is going to slow down our overconsumption habits. In turn, it's also going to be saving us money. And another point to add now is that it's going to help us develop our personal style. I know a lot of people love saving their inspiration to Pinterest, myself included, but I feel like I get a bit carried away sometimes and I'm just adding anything that I like the look of, not necessarily things that I personally would want to wear. And I never really thought too much of it, but recently I actually did a video with Alexa over on her channel where she was thrifting me my dream mystery bundle. Still mind blown by it. If you haven't seen it, please go check it out. And for that video, she actually requested that I send in my Pinterest board to get the kind of vibes of what she should be looking out for. And as I was going through my usual one, I was like, this isn't quite right. So I created a separate one where I was a lot more critical and nitpicky about what I was actually adding. Would I genuinely want to be wearing this? And honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I would potentially add another new board as well, because this one that I put together for Alexa was things that I realistically would wear, but it was still aspirational. It was the sort of pieces that I haven't got in my wardrobe yet. Whereas it would be good to have another one where it's just outfit ideas, styling, the sort of things that I already own. I don't want you to put too much focus into this though, at least not yet. The Pinterest boards can be helpful and whatever, but I feel like the more important step here is to actually analyze the clothes you already have in your wardrobe. We need to know what you're actually wearing. Mandy from Old Loser in Brooklyn recently posted a style challenge, which was kind of her fashion take on the viral 75 hard, and it is very similar with very similar objectives as to what I was looking to suggest today. Pretty much the challenge is putting together an outfit every single day for the 75-day period. Honestly, that's a long time. If you're looking to fast track this, I think you could get away with a month. Every single outfit you want to document, and that doesn't mean you have to be posting it to social media. It can just be your own album for your own personal analysis. And the other crucial component is that this is a no buying period. So whatever time frame you set for that entire period, you don't want to be introducing any new items. It's just working on styling things that you already own. This is great because in a way it almost forces you to get creative in how you're restyling the same pieces over and over. You might rediscover something that has been shoved to the back of your wardrobe for too long and feel like, oh my god, where has this been? But I guess the most helpful part in this particular instance is that it really is just data collection. At the end of the challenge, we're gonna have so much to analyze. For example, some things that you might want to look at identifying are particular colors that are popping up. Are there fabrics that you're gravitating towards or avoiding? Are there particular shapes and silhouettes that you are creating more than others? Are there certain items that are almost always present in particular outfit formulas? I think you can see where I'm going with this. They're probably going to end up being your go-to pieces. I think the key to this is you really can't be afraid to be overly specific. For example, saying you like baggy t-shirts or crop t-shirts for that matter, either way, you want to be really specific about the length you like it to hit at, because surprisingly, just a couple of centimeters can make all the difference on whether you are gravitating towards that every single day or it's just going to be collecting dust. Let's actually take a look at some of the things I consider to be my go-tos to give you a better understanding. This kind of midi length skirt is number one for me. It needs to be either flowy or A-line though. I don't like anything too fitted. This silky lace one was probably my most worn item of 2023. It just goes with everything, whether I want a full-on girly look or want to use it as my contrast piece against something more edgy or sporty. This black one is another great shout because you can wear it in so many different ways, from midi skirt to top. The white blouse I've been wearing this entire video has to make the list. I would choose this over a plain white tee any day. It's just such an easy way to add that cutesy vibe that I love, also bringing volume to the silhouette through the puff sleeves, and the fact that it has this exaggerated collar is just screaming for me to do some layering. Speaking of layering, I have so many cami tops that I love but just feel incomplete wearing them on their own, so I like to have an additional layer. Unfortunately for me, it's pretty warm here a lot of the time, so I've developed quite the collection of lightweight outerwear pieces. My most worn tend to be in white or cream just because it complements the color palette I tend to gravitate towards. I definitely still have some other options that I grab fairly frequently though, and this is a good reminder to be factoring in your lifestyle as well. Are you going out a lot at nighttime? Do you have to walk a lot rather than driving? And obviously, what's the weather like?
Everybody makes mistakes.
Something I've discovered about my style is I'm not so comfortable with color blocking. I definitely prefer to have a pattern mixed in there, which is why a lot of what I would consider to be basic tees aren't just a plain color, but rather a graphic or a print. I'm sorry, but you can't convince me that this borderline creepy bunny top isn't a neutral. Another thing to keep in mind is that you do not need to be serving a 10 out of 10 outfit every single day. In my opinion, that is just unrealistic. But because I rely on my style so much as a form of self-expression, I used to find this really difficult until I found some comfortable items that did still feel like they were reflecting me. Is it a Steal the Spotlight video without some plaid? Absolutely not. Having a pattern or a color that you're so comfortable with, I find can actually be useful when you're trying out new things as well. For example, a silhouette that you don't usually gravitate towards, but if you introduce it in the form of your favorite pattern or color, all of a sudden it doesn't feel so scary. The downside is sometimes we can be blinded by that love, so make sure you're still being mindful. Is this the right cut, the quality, the fabric that I truly like? You can also use this challenge as an opportunity to identify anything you feel is missing in your wardrobe. For example, I was getting so much wear out of this dress, I was like, you know what? It would make sense to invest in another dress of this same silhouette. I'm also currently on the market to replace my headphones and this belt that I just have worn to death, and they are on their last legs. Which brings me to my favorite thing, accessories. I think these are actually the key to having a signature style, because if you get the right ones, you could wear them with every single outfit. If you've been here for a hot minute, you'll know I have always had a love for headwear accessories. Over the last couple of years, it's been very difficult not to style one of these two skinny scarves with every single fit. And I've always been for a good crossbody bag because the strap is almost like adding an extra layer. And under this umbrella, I think you can add signature makeup and hairstyles as well. And this is such an easy and affordable way that you can actually get started on creating that signature immediately. Obviously, this can take time. Some people are lucky enough to just be sure of themselves, and from the get-go, they know what they love and what they don't want to bar off. Others, like myself, unfortunately might have to kiss a few frogs along the way in order to learn our lessons. And that was kind of the funny thing to me about a lot of the discourse surrounding personal style last year, because it almost made personal style a trend in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was spoken about as though, oh, if you don't have personal style right now, you're not cool, you're out. And it's like, let's have a little bit more grace about this, because realistically, you can't just wake up tomorrow morning and be like, yes, I know my personal style and my wardrobe perfectly reflects that. An interesting example I saw someone discussing on TikTok recently was, you know, obviously all different aesthetics and cores are popular. One that has been trending recently is eclectic grandpa, and just how counterintuitive this feels. I'm not saying you have to be of a certain age to have developed that sort of aesthetic, but this is the sort of thing that can't happen overnight, because a lot of the time, I feel like these older generations that have this unique style, that's like the epitome of personal style, because they have spent years and years developing it through lived experiences, which I think is a good reminder that personal style can always be evolving. Ideally, it's supposed to feel like a natural extension of yourself, and this is where I feel like the wardrobe essentials and the personal style part differ a little bit, because obviously for the wardrobe essentials, like I've said, we want to get into the nitty-gritty and analyze it so we have the items that are going to work best for us. But in the grander schemes of things, when it comes to personal style, you don't want to get too caught up in only consuming fashion content. You want to have outside influences as well. What are you doing? What are your hobbies? What are you reading and watching at the moment? Is there a particular time period you're fascinated with? Is there something that you like to collect? These are the sort of things that if you let it cross over and mix and blend with your style as well, it's just gonna feel like the missing puzzle that makes everything feel more you and less like a copy and paste. A critique I quite often see when it comes to recreating Pinterest outfits and things of that nature is that it creates this like copy and paste mentality, which I can understand. Also, from the other side though, it can be a really good starting block for people to kind of wrap their head around how to put an outfit together. My favorite way to go about styling is just to have a loose vibe reference in mind. If you're getting too specific with a particular image you want to recreate, I often find that that can be a hindrance, because it kind of leads to a constant comparison. Like, you have this image, you can cross-reference and be like, oh, mine's not good enough for this reason, that reason, and this. So that can then lead on to feeling like your wardrobe is never good enough, which then comes the overconsumption, always needing something new, something better. But if you're just more loose with your inspiration, then you still have that helping hand with the visualization of things, but you're not boxing yourself in. You still have the freedom to be creative in your own way. For example, I love to look like I stepped out of a shoujo manga, but obviously this is where your personality can come into it. Create your own fantasy world. Do you work at a fashion magazine? Are you on set of a 90s teen film? Anything goes. Obviously, it's still nice to try new things and important to continue to be experimental. I am not anti-trends by any means, okay? But I do think that if you work on developing these sort of fundamentals, it actually makes it a lot easier to be able to identify trends in the future that you know are gonna work for you and save your money on the ones that maybe might not. Just some recent examples of mine to help you visualize it, I guess. Skirts over pants. Duh. Of course I was gonna eat this up because my style always involves layering. Ballet flats. This almost feels like a trick question, because initially someone would probably be like, yeah, that totally suits her style. She's really girly. I don't see why not. But I know myself, I only wear chunky shoes, so I'm gonna pass on that one. Bubble hems. This is something that I am always on constant search for. Again, really plays into that girly sort of aesthetic that I love, and it also ticks off my love for a fuller silhouette when it comes to skirts. I feel kind of bad that I wasn't able to just give you a tangible list of items, and that a lot of the examples I was showing were more on the playful side, I guess, just because that's what fits in with my wardrobe, but obviously that was the point that I was trying to get across in today's video, right? Everything is going to be personal to you, and I probably should have included this disclaimer in the earlier stages of this video, but I'm also not saying that you aren't allowed to have more simple, traditional, classic essentials if that's what you want. That's totally fine. And actually, just before I started filming, I saw a TikTok that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. It's like the ins and outs for 2024, and their out was like, oh, clean girl, basic girls, Uggs, blah, blah, blah. And then the very next slide was in elevated basics. I don't know, I just find that that sort of discourse can be so tiring. Like, oh, it's too basic, it's too trendy, back and forth whatever. Just wear what makes you feel good. And hopefully in this video, it's kind of just gotten you thinking and asking the questions you need to answer in order to find what's gonna work best for you.
Yes, just wear what you like best.
What a great idea!
Let me know if there's any other videos you want to see from me in this sort of realm, like outfit formulas, finding fashion inspiration. I want to continue with my styling clothes that I never wear sort of series. And yeah, it's just kind of taking a bit of a step back from trends at the moment, just because I feel like that sort of content is so oversaturated as it is anyway. But hopefully I will be seeing you very, very soon. Bye!